Hello, Internet. So nice to see you. How do professional musicians put together chord progression with chords that are not in key and still make them work? Well, a student was asking me exactly this question for the chord progression in the intro of Stairway to Heaven. If you know the chord progression, it goes out of key fairly often, okay, practically every other chord. And my student was also asking me, and came with all this idea of like, this chord is borrowed from here, this chord is borrowed from there. And of course, it didn't make any sense. Like, why they should borrow a chord from this scale and not from another scale. In reality, it is much simpler than that. All this idea of borrowing chord from scale works, but in this case and in many other cases, it just complicates the thing, okay? Everything is much, much simpler. So, let's see exactly what Jimmy Page is doing in this chord progression, why is he doing it, and then how you can do the same on your chord progression. So let's see exactly what I answered to my student.
Transitioning between different modes in a song. So it's something that I don't know or I can't really understand to a deep level. So I noticed that maybe some songs is played in a one mode the whole song, so maybe Dorian, and I understand that, okay, if it's Dorian, then I can use my, for example, a Dorian scale over that song, but some songs seems to be kind of beginning in one mode and changing like different modes. So for example, in the song Stairway to Heaven, I interpret it as kind of like it's in A minor, but then it has some like chords that goes out of the mode. Sounds like maybe during one chord I would play the harmonic minor scale, and then when it comes to like the major fourth, maybe I think that is like a Dorian scale. And I'd just be curious to know about how, like both in the lead and in the rhythm parts, like why do they choose to go between certain modes, and how can I as a improviser like understand which modes they go between?
Okay. So in that specific case, the song is built in that way because they are thinking of the bass going down chromatically, right? I don't remember if they go on a natural F, but
Yeah, they do.
they do, okay?
It's like
Exactly.
yeah.
So they do have to do E. No, they don't do E.
I think that's the last one. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, good, fantastic. Very good. Okay, so, but the point is that chromatically descending. So they are in A minor, and then they just try to fit whatever they can fit. Okay, you could fit this, you could fit this, you could have fit this, you could have fitted this. The guiding idea is that whenever you can keep a note of the scale, you keep it. But when you can't, you change it. So if I'm playing a G sharp on the bass, I'm not keeping the G, for instance. And I'm likely not going to play an A on top of that either, because they don't really sound good, okay? So I'm trying to fashion a chord with what I can find. So it's kind of like, I want the descending chromatic scale. I'm willing to do anything I have to do to find a chord that fits that note, but whenever I can, I'm taking the notes from the original scale, which is A minor. Okay, so that's kind of the guiding principle. So if I can change only one note, I will get that chord with the note changed. Okay, if you take the A natural minor, you will have an E minor as the fifth chord. Okay, now we know that with harmonic minor you can change it, etc. But since I have a G sharp here, I cannot use the natural G in the E minor, so I'm playing an E chord but with the G sharp, essentially, an E minor but with the G sharp, which is an E major chord, essentially. Makes sense? Then that's a C chord, nothing strange. And then when I get here, and then they have an F sharp. In the key of D minor, of A minor, I have a D minor chord, but since I have an F sharp, I play a D major chord. It's as simple as that. Okay, it's like, where do I conflict change that note? Okay, that's unaccepted, way to use music theory. It's not a cop-out, okay? So that's the guiding principle. That's why they put all these. They started from the line, right? Which is a very popular line, okay? Because what song is this? And you're wrong. Echoes by Pink Floyd. So if you have a melody or a bass line that goes out of key, you just adapt that chord. Okay? Now, naturally, if you take a scale and change only one note, you're going to most likely find one of the modes that you know already. Because that's how we build modes, pretty much, okay? Maybe it's not a mode of the major scale, maybe it's a mode of the melodic minor or harmonic minor, but all the most common note changes are contained in those three scales and their modes. That's why you see people changing mode. But they're not thinking as we are changing the mode. That's a later explanation, okay? They are thinking, I have this line that I like, could be a chromatic line, could be something else, or I want to go out of key in this position, and I'm thinking of one note that goes out of key, and I'm trying to fit that note, whether it's the bass line, the melody, a middle line, something. I'm trying to fit that note with a chord that contains as many notes as possible from the original key and the change note. Make sense? So if you start conceptualizing Stairway to Heaven as changing mode, you are making your life much harder, okay? Like way harder than it needs to be. Okay, I'm not saying you can't. It's a perfectly rational explanation. It's a perfectly coherent explanation. At the end of the day, it will give you all the information you need. It's just much harder to calculate in real time for a baseline human, okay? Because you're not that fast at doing this kind of math. Okay, instead, you would like to think this way. It's in A minor. But when I'm hitting the G sharp, I'm not playing the G, I'm playing the G sharp. When I'm hitting the F sharp, I'm not playing the F, I'm playing the F sharp. Okay, naturally, if I take an A minor scale and I put a G sharp rather than the G, I have a harmonic minor. And if I take an A minor scale and I put an F sharp rather than the F, I get a Dorian, A Dorian. But you don't really think of that. You're just thinking, I'm changing that note. Okay, and the job is done, okay? Because with very rare exception, after you finish playing, nobody comes there and asks you what mode you played. Okay, so I don't need to give any answer there. I'm just changing the note. Now, this trick has been known for hundreds of years. This is before the Baroque era. Okay, it's called musica ficta. Ficta means we change. It has a long story why it's called this way. But essentially, we just put an alteration on the note we want to change, and we just put a chord. Whatever it is, okay? So we bend the scale to get there, okay? For some reason, when they teach you music theory today, they tell you should not do that. I mean, they never tell you explicitly, but they're like, no, it's this mode. No, that's the official name. No, that's what we're doing. It's a triton substitution, a secondary dominant, all this kind of crap, okay? Fine, whatever. It's a great explanation, but at the end of the day, what we're doing is just changing a note, okay? The fun thing is that now you could take a chromatic progression. I mean, this one starts from the root and essentially goes down nearly to the fifth, it goes down to the plus sixth. But you could start from the root and go up, or you can start from the fifth and go up, or from the fifth and going down. Okay, yes. You can do whatever you want. Okay, but you can just take 4 notes, whatever, and then you just harmonize these by thinking what chord comes next. Okay, so for instance, very typical thing to do is to have a bass that goes 1, 4, sharp 4, 5. 1, I'm playing, and 1 is C, I'm playing C major. On the 4th, I mean, why complicate? I'm playing the F. I mean, the root position chord, right? And I'm keeping those 2 notes, I play the F sharp. I know what chord it is. You don't know what chord it is, but I don't need to know what chord it is. I'm just playing the F chord, and I'm raising the F to an F sharp. And then I play the G. So, on C, I play C major. On F, I play F major. On G, I play G major. It cannot be easier than that. Okay? And then on F sharp, I don't know what I'm playing. I'm just playing an F with a raised sharp. Sounds good enough to me. Do you? Okay. Do we want to go more complicated? Sure, I can on C major, I'm playing a C. On F, I'm playing a D minor in first inversion. Then I'm playing a D major. And then G. Now people will go like, oh, D major, it is the secondary dominant of the G. It is. But I didn't think this way. I just put a chord and I just change a note. You see what I mean?
Yes.
Okay? That's how we arrive at all those chords. No, nobody sat down and thought, it would be nice if we take the fifth chord of the temporary key and we put it...
Yeah.
I mean, later, in fact, much later in the 20th century, people were like, okay, that sounds like they go in that key for a moment and it's like the fifth chord. But originally, in the 1600, 1500 actually, I'm like, nope, it's just changing a note. It still works. Okay?
Yeah.
So just do that.
Yeah, okay, that makes things a lot easier.
Very good.
And this makes it easier to explain to my students also.
Yes, exactly.